This is Jyotsna Hegde with NRI Pulse. Today, we have with us Mr. Bruce Thompson, who represents District 14 in the State Senate and is also the Republican candidate for the office of the Labor Commissioner in Georgia. Also joining us today is Karthik Bhatt, who is a former candidate running for the same position and currently serves on the Georgia Board of Examiners for the certification of water and wastewater treatment. Thank you both for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So, Mr. Thompson, we're in a very unique time in our history, with regard to economy and particularly where, labor is headed. And now is a good time, I think, to have a conversation with candidates running for this particular position to discuss unemployment, underemployment, and, even overemployment in some cases, and what it means for us as a state and as a country. So, yeah, let's get right to it. Mr. Thompson, have a very interesting career curve, right? You started early on at the age of 10. I believe you started selling milk to the bus drivers, and you haven't looked back since. You've served in the army. You went on to start several initiatives, successful initiatives, I might add, that have been acquired by other companies, an insurance company, and also to tech start companies as well. And you represent District 14. With all of that going on for you, what prompted you to, run for the Labor Commissioner position?
Well, you're true. I did serve in the Army National Guard in tanks. And what you learn in tanks is you have to work as a team because you're in a confined area. When we were in the General Assembly serving in the Senate, we found out real quick that the team wasn't quite working as a team. We had the Labor Department that was not representing the people of Georgia. And you had not only people that couldn't get access to the department to file claims, but then we had millions of dollars being paid out. And unfortunately, that's our taxpayer money. And it's being paid out to people that are illegitimate claims or illegal claims. And then in the media, you constantly had reports of abuse and fraud and various things. It was time to put a new face with new leadership on there. And my friend on the call, Karthik and I both stepped up and said, we want to try and change this. And we want to see how we might use technology to leverage that agency to become more fiscally responsible, meaning we don't need to add more people until you make sure you're very efficient with the resources you're giving. Your community can certainly appreciate this, that you don't just throw money away. In the Indian community, I understand you have more family members. You make sure you do with what you have and do the very best before you go spending more money. Mm-hmm. And that's what we need to do with this agency. Once you modernize it with technology, then we can look at other ways to leverage that agency through, as you mentioned, underemployment. Let's look at people that want to do better and match up. Maybe they're missing one class, or maybe they have an opportunity to go on to take another job that will increase their opportunity for their family. We can marry those up with that information, the technology and university schools, to be able to provide that.
So, Karthik ji, I'm going to ask you this question now. You were the running mate for the same office just a few months earlier. So, But today I see you put up signs for most Republican candidate, including Mr. Thompson. Yes. So, well, what prompted you to support him?
I mean, me and Bruce Thompson went for the Broughton agency. We don't against each other. We are friends. And we decide if he will win, I support him. And if I win, he support me. Because we don't want to socialism people in that agency. We need new leadership, but not the Democrat. And Bruce Thompson is the best candidate. And I want to make sure he win that office.
Of course. So, Mr. Thompson, what are your immediate priorities if you get elected?
Well, we're already working on some of those priorities. We're not trying to be assumptive that we win or arrogant, but certainly it's in all of your businesses, you have to plan, right? And so crisis management means you plan for the crisis. You don't wait till you're in it. So we're planning to take over in January. And part of that is meeting with software companies that are already implementing this technology in other states. That I keep using the word modernize. And simply what that means is right now, the Department of Labor up until 2021 was using human capital for every claim that came through. That's unnecessary in today's world. And certainly the Indian American community can understand that a lot of our technology comes from your community. You understand that you can modernize things and make it very efficient utilizing bots and AI. Well, in 2021, the department implemented some technology, but it's less than 15% of all the claims. Immediately, I want to know, how do we leverage this technology to do a majority of the claims, which means we'll have less interaction with humans, unless, of course, people want it. Most people don't go and fill out a claim because they want to get on the phone and have a dialogue with someone. They're filling out a claim and they run into a roadblock and they don't understand and they're confused, and then they need somebody on the phone. And if we're using all of our human capital to fill out a simple application, then they're not available for those that need them. So that's the very first thing. In addition to that, I want to reduce the expense of the agency. My opponent on the Democratic side wants to grow the agency from 1,000 to 4,000 people. Well, the problem with that is you and I, as taxpayers, we got to pay for that. I want to go the opposite direction. I want to look at this big building we have downtown that we own as the Department of Labor. Frankly, you own as a taxpayer, but it's on our balance sheet. And I want to see if we're utilizing that, or if it's too expensive. If it is, how do we maybe deploy some of those jobs to other areas that are struggling to find decent jobs? You know, these $50,000 and $60,000 a year jobs in a city of Atlanta really may become 70 and 80. But if you could put them in some other areas of our state, people would be very happy to have that $50,000 job. So we want to go in and do what we all do. I'm sure Kartik does it. You do it. The community does it. You go into a business and do due diligence. That's what we want to do very quickly. Let's assess what we have, and then we can identify how to fix it. If you go in trying to fix something you really haven't assessed yet, you very well make a bigger mess.
True. The pandemic sort of, caused this major disruption, in America's labor force, something many have referred to as the Great Resignation, if you will. Wherever I go, it doesn't matter what zip code, from the best ones to the not so good ones, I see the help wanted signs across businesses everywhere. And a lot of these businesses, especially the small business ones, they have to either shut down early or start late because owing to all these labor woes, right? So how do you plan on addressing these issues?
Well, first of all, again, we need to go in and assess how many people are drawing unemployment right now that have been offered a job and they're just not willing to come back. Mm-hmm. I use the story when I'm speaking in groups that in Montana, where I grew up, you have big signs when you go into the national parks. Those big signs say, do not feed the bears. And they don't want you to feed the bears, not necessarily to protect the people, but protect the bears, because once you start feeding the bears, they lose the ability to take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. And then when you do cut it off, they get real aggressive. Well, we've done that with the American workforce. We did it by giving out free phones with the Obama administration. Then we gave out free checks. Then we increased those free checks with federal government. Then we took back some of those free checks, and they still have the state checks. You've got to go to people and say, listen, these benefits were designed to get people back on their feet, not designed as an entitlement to keep you on your feet. That's the first thing we need to do. I don't believe it's widespread, but I know it's going on. So that's the first thing. The next thing we need to do is we need to identify people that are being displaced as companies eliminate some of those jobs. Let's take the restaurant industry. The pandemic has forced a lot of restaurants to try and modernize with technology. Carl's Jr. in California are rolling out this company called Miso Robotics. One robot replaces 10 people in the kitchen. Chipotle's doing the same thing. I personally think in 3 to 5 years, you probably will not have many kitchen workers for insurance reasons and so on. Where do they go? Let's go back to that technology. Let's marry those people up into other jobs. Now let's talk about, that's the underemployed. Now let's talk about, we're the #1 place in the country to do business. So while we had people that, as you said, the Great Resignation, they're sitting back. Then we have people that are underemployed that really want to do better. But then we have a growth in our economy, leaving us with a gaping hole. One of my biggest concerns right now is, as we continue to grow, which I want us to do, and as we're the number one place to do business, so big companies are coming here.
Yep.
They're going to have to get their employees from somewhere. They very well may come on the backs of us small businesses where they cherry pick those employees. Then you're going to put us out of business because we can't compete. So what we need to be doing is looking for other verticals. How about the people that are returning back from the military? We need to make sure that they understand and the employers understand how to connect these. What about the retirees that are coming here? These retirees, because of inflation under Biden, certainly it costs a lot more to live, so they're having to take second jobs. But where do you go if you were a business owner or if you were a professional? You don't want to go to Walmart. You don't want to work at Home Depot. At the same time, you need a job. So how do we take someone and create an environment for part-time people like them that want to use their skills but be paid what they're worth? Then let's take the incarcerated. I'm not trying to profile, let's just talk about real numbers. The incarcerated is typically not the Indian American community, right? I mean, if I look at the numbers, it's not. But for your Indian community that have businesses, some of the incarcerated that are returning back into the population have skill sets that if we know they have those skill sets, we can marry them up with some of these job opportunities, right?
Absolutely.
And then the last one I would say is a bill that I helped co-author. It's the apprenticeship bill. It's taking young people that in other countries they're doing this, but for whatever reason our country wasn't doing this. Let's get people at 15 years old. They may be in a troubled home and they don't see a future. They may be in a home where both parents are working all the time and they've never exposed them. Whatever the reason is, we have young people not being exposed to the workforce. Instead, they're addicted to games and other things, and whatever it is can grab their attention. If I can get you at 15, get you involved in how you can really make money, let you know you're valuable to the workforce, we can then start charting their path into the workforce and instead of something else. I think those 4 verticals will help fill that gap.
Yeah, I love the one where you pick up someone when they're younger. I think that sets them on the right path too.
That's correct.
And it helps the industry. You brought up the issue of bores that sort of, Karthik and I, we were talking about this earlier, some of the issues, especially with, people like gas station owners, small business owners, these are people, they hire someone and then this person just sort of, they don't want to work. So they just quit their jobs. They go to the labor department and they're claiming unemployment benefits, right? So now these people, this is where, small business owners really suffer because now they have to get an attorney for which they have to pay. And if they don't, they still have to pay a fine for whatever has been wronged or quote unquote wrong. So is there a way that labor department can sort of address that issue or verify their claims or things like that?
Maybe we should take everyone over to India so that they can understand what it's like to really be in an environment where you have to work hard, right? I had a chance to visit. But seriously, there should be and there will be. Right now, because they're not very technologically advanced, they don't have a way to catch that. And so what if we lived in a world where the employer, and I'm not saying we do this, but it's an idea. Right now, the employee can file unemployment benefits. Like you said, you terminate them, maybe they didn't show up for work. They go and they apply for benefits, and then it's left up to the employer to really defend themselves. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like you're guilty until proven innocent.
The burden of proof is on the employer then,
So what if we change that? What if we go to the employer? Now we'd have to put very strict guidelines in that the employer must, when there's a separation, fill out the information in a timely manner, right? But only the employer can do that because the employer should legally already have all the information. When you hired them, you should have all the information, social security or visa number and so on. You fill that out. In a technologically advanced Department of Labor, that should be a streamlined approach. You fill it out. Bots can tell in most cases whether they qualify or don't. It gets rejected. It notifies the employer, we're looking for this because it doesn't match. Maybe it's a social security number you input wrong or whatever, and it can be easily cleared up. Right now, when the employer fills it out, They have no idea until someone manually gets around to seeing it. It may be 3 days, 5 days, so on. It may have gotten approved and that wasn't supposed to be approved. They don't really know. But what if it was instantaneously? You put it in, it comes back. You now have a unique dashboard that shows your employees. Simultaneously, it contacts the employee. And in today's world, every employee, everyone either has one of these or a computer. They have an email or they have a smartphone. So it pings your phone, just like you do with a State Farm or an Allstate or something else. And you have a unique identifier that's encrypted, just you. And so you set up your account, you as an employee log on and you can see, oh, it's been approved or it's been denied. Why has it been denied? You click on it, it says you didn't work enough hours or you were terminated with just cause because you didn't show up for 2 weeks.
Beautiful.
Now the law would still allow you to appeal it, but it shifts the burden to the employee.
True. To the one
I think it streamlines it and makes it easier and it takes the burden off the businesses.
True. So that's on the employer side. So when we move back to the employee side, we heard so much, especially post-pandemic, people actually really needing that, unemployment benefits who still haven't got it. And, they had these major complaints about how, the calls went unanswered. They said, go online, but then there was nothing to follow up. Basically, there was no response from the Department of Labor. So how would you sort of address that issue?
Kartik and I align on a lot of our philosophical views. One of the biggest things that makes Kartik and I unique and very different than other people is we're relational. The Department of Labor is not relational right now. It's transactional. And so, of course, you log in, you don't know whether the claim got through or not. You try and get someone, they send you to a voicemail. They may or may not get back with you. We have widows in our state that frankly were notified by the Department of Labor saying that you qualified for benefits. So that of course, if they say you qualify, they had the Department of Labor help them fill it out. They got their check. Now the Department of Labor is saying, oops, we screwed up, and they're suing them for the money. And these are widows on fixed income, right? That's not relational. Yeah. What I want to do is shift most of the claim process so it's streamlined. And then you have people, human capital, when they need to. So let's just assume it was me that got laid off. Right now, I'm fighting to try and figure out what's going on and need it. And I get no answer. I go to my legislator. They can't get an answer. What if we turn that around and made it streamlined? And so I call in, you will always have a live person. Always. That live person was able to say, let me log in. I'm looking at it. Hey, Bruce, I see your claim here. I see that we sent you a notification. I see you access that notification on X, Y, and Z at this time. And I see you clicked on it to see why it was denied. And it says that you didn't qualify. Is that what your question is? Well, I disagree with that. Okay, so first of all, you do understand it was denied. The process for you now is you have to file an appeal. Would you like to set that up? Yes, let me fill it out. Boom. Okay. On your phone right now, did you get that? Yes. All right, now you have access to schedule your appeal. See, we don't do that right now. Right now, it's transactional. And I want to make it relational where the face of that agency is very interactive, informative, and positive to get people to work, not to sustain them to stay out of work.
Nice. So one of the other issues that the employers are facing, and these are, I'm talking about a little, bigger employers like IBM and, Wipro and all of these people who have a big presence in the state of Georgia, is what we call moonlighting. And mostly this all started, with the pandemic and most of the tech people working from home. So, basically employers are discovering that, these are high paying jobs, minimum is 80K. So, and they expect high quality work from these people, but they find out that they're doing 280K jobs at the same time simultaneously. So I'm guessing, I don't, so if let's say the employer came to you with that issue and said, hey, is there any way we can deal with this? because technically moonlighting is not illegal, or it's not something that you're not supposed to do. I think it is in India, but not really here. So how would you sort of deal with that?
Yeah, so it really kind of boils down to what we mean by moonlighting. So if you're employed by, say, IBM, right? We'll use them as a big company. They're a big face. We'll just throw it out there. And you are employed to do X, Y, and Z, code X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
And you go behind IBM's back and you take a job that is stripping away that work from them, that's illegal. But because part of your agreement is it's theft, you're stealing that work. But if you were to go on the side, and let's say that Kartik and I was to hire that programmer that has time to develop something for him and I on a business on the side, he's using, his skills, but it's not an interruption of business over here. So sometimes moonlighting is viewed as an overarching, and in our country and specifically in our state, we don't permit you to be able to work secondary jobs. But as an employment, I recommend to every employer, everyone, whether it's a gas station to a programming company, when you hire someone, make sure you have a work contract with that employee that you spell out what your expectations are. If your expectations is, hey, you're not going to work from another gas station right across the street, right? You can't prevent them from going and working in a grocery store, but you can't, and you have them sign that. Now you have something to protect yourself. And that's what I recommend people to do, is understand what's reasonable and just have them sign it. And if they don't want to sign it, you probably don't have a loyal employee that's willing to come to work there.
Perhaps have like a moonlighting thing that you have to sign, exception or something. Interesting.
Yeah, we say in our businesses, we call it a conflict of interest. We have you sign a form called a conflict of interest, where it's a conflict of interest if you are in one of my software companies, go to work for a competitor.
That would definitely,
yeah.
So, Mr. Thompson, you've served on the state Senate. And now you're running for Georgia Labor Commissioner. So, how would you sort of leverage that position to help the Labor Department? Would you, and if you would, how would you sort of leverage that position to help the Labor Department?
That's a great question. One of the challenges the Department of Labor has right now, and I go back to this, Kartik and I understand it. I believe you understand it in the profession you're in. Relationships are king. You can be the smart person in the room, but if you can't develop a relationship, it's hard to get things done. And the Department of Labor lost its way. They lost it with Governor Deal. They lost it with Governor Kemp. They lost it with the House and the Senate. In the Senate, I have very good relationships. Last night, we had a large event up here in the Canton area where we hosted, I think there was close to 500 people, and raised a significant amount of money, $250,000 for Governor Kemp, and I introduced him. We have a great relationship. And I have that relationship all over the state with other legislators. So executive branch relationship, House and Senate relationships already there. So when people say, well, how are you going to fix these relationships? They're not broken. So I just need to build on them. The thing that we do need to do is build on a relationship with the people. That's going to be a cultural shift to help everyone inside the agency understand we exist to serve the people outside. We don't exist to serve ourselves or have them serve us. And so that's one of the things. The other thing is, because I have business background, I know how to streamline things. I have bought businesses. I have started businesses. Some of the businesses we bought, we had to dismantle and reassemble and put them back together. That's really what's going to have to happen to this agency. We're going to have to perform some surgery while the person is still alive. So I have the experience to do that. We can hire good people around us to do it. We expect within 6 months that there'll be a very good PR internally and externally. And then we just keep building on that. Preparing for what everyone says is an impending recession.
In the coming years, what do you think are the biggest opportunities, for Georgia workers? Where are the jobs going to be, and how would the workers sort of get ready for them? You mentioned about AI and everything. So what do you think about that?
So I think we all can agree AI is coming. It's not going away.
Mhm.
Machine learning is very, very important. You've seen it in manufacturing in the past, and you're seeing manufacturing continue. You've got the Hyundai plant that's coming. You got Rivian plant. You add the two of them together, it's 12,000 jobs just in that. And you think about all of the other positions around that.
Sure.
You think about transportation. There's going to have to be a lot of expediting of goods, transporting those goods. And some of that is not just manual labor. We think of transporting goods as running a forklift. In today's world, you're automating some of this, right? In Europe, they have tractor trailers, 18-wheelers that are autonomous.
Wow.
So I think what we need to be teaching young people. I mean, I have a daughter that's 22 and a son that's 17. They grew up with this, right? So why not leverage that in the classroom? Not so that they can be playing with it, but leverage them, teach them how to search and use and code at 14 and 15 years old. So when they go into these jobs, hypothetically, we go back to the restaurants. Okay, we're going to eliminate the person that's cooking French fries, but there's a robot and somebody has to know how that robot operates. So there's always one person assigned. So let's equip this person to be the person that can program and understand how to make sure the robot's doing what they're supposed to do. In all of those verticals, you're going to need a lot more of this and not as much of this. That also is, it's to say that not everybody is equipped for that. You take the trades, plumbing, electrical, carpentry, mechanics, there is a mass shortage of those people. And so again, we did away with shop class back in the day. They did away with it. You're going to have to reintroduce this at a young age to help someone say, okay, if their interests are not over here, if their interests are here, let's teach them to be a welder or a mechanic or carpentry or plumbing or electrical. So the day they graduate high school, they can become employable. They may not be making 100 grand, but they can come out making 60, and that company will pick them up, put a year of apprenticeship, and now they're on track to be able to take care of their families. We have to think differently than we did in the past. We used to just rely on the family. The family unit isn't what it once was. So society is going to have to pick that up.
Yeah, we are running out of time, but let me, wind up by asking you, why should the people of Georgia vote for you?
I think if you were to watch the debate, I think it highlights the big difference between myself and my opponent. We all agree the Department of Labor needs radical change. Okay. So my question is, what kind of change? Do you want a businessman that knows how to take a business, make it very streamlined, very responsive to people, and understands the relationship between the customer and the person providing it? In this case, the Department of Labor and the customer is all of the general public. Or do you want what my opponent said, and that is, he wants to grow that agency 400% with human capital, which means raising taxes and put down on the backs of people, which means it's not going to be very efficient. So your decision is, do you want an agency that you don't get to pay for, you're mandated to pay for? Because no one gets to choose to pay their taxes. We take it from you. Do you want it to be efficient and responsive to you or not? That's the difference. I have the experience. I want to be your labor commissioner, so I can fix that agency for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's good to see you, Kartik.
Yeah, see, I will. God bless you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.